You're listening to Table Talk with Toddy, the podcast where we have real talk about life and business as a creative living in the 21st century. I'm your host, Natasha Toddy Weston. Let's get into it. I would say that where you are at this very moment, whether you're in your car on your lunch break, because Lord, I remember those days. Whether you are, wherever you are right now at this present moment, do not underestimate the process, because everything that I've built in the last 10 years could not have been built without the process. It couldn't have been built without the days in the car on the lunch break, the days of not wanting to get up and go to work, the days of being frustrated with your boss. Like, I think back to all of those moments and I wouldn't be who I am or be able to offer what I offer had I not experienced that process. And I think a lot of times we equate the process to pain all the time, and it's really not. That's really not what it is. You have to go through a process in order to find the gems. You have to go through some type of process in order to learn more about yourself, in order to learn what can I offer the world, because businesses are built to solve problems. And if you have not made it through a process enough to solve a problem, you don't have a business. And you could start one all day long, but it's not going to be profitable. And when you don't have profit, you can't really make the impact that you want to make. Therefore, you can't leave the legacy that you desire. So I always tell people who are in that space, because I've been there so many times, is that you have to stop underestimating the process and start documenting the process. I am really big on documenting the process. So when you asked me earlier, like, what was a big turning point for me? Yeah, the first turning point for me was when I was pregnant with Tyler and I realized I needed to make more money. But the second big turning point for me happened in 2016 when we lost our child at home for the second time in foreclosure, right? And I was embarrassed. My family was embarrassed. I didn't have a job, and Tyler was only 2 years old. And I had two options. I could either crawl under a rock and be shamed, or I could use the little bit of a social media platform I built and share that experience so that I could get myself up out of that and not be ashamed, because shame will put you in so much bondage that years will go by and you will have done absolutely nothing because shame has totally robbed you. And so instead of doing that, I pulled out my phone, which was disconnected, by the way. I was on Wi-Fi, stealing Wi-Fi from somebody. I don't know who. But I pulled out my phone and I literally vlogged the entire experience. Like, I vlogged tears, happy moments when I was able to find the apartment. I vlogged the whole experience. And to date, that is still the most viewed piece of content that I own on the internet. And it was at that moment that I realized that you're going to always go through things. You're going to always, if you work in a 9-to-5, there are going to be bad weeks. It's going to happen. But what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit there and cry and whine about it? Or are you going to leverage that process so that you can reposition your situation? And I chose to vlog that situation, not because I wanted to let everybody in my business, because it was definitely uncomfortable, but because I felt like if I'm really going to make an impact and if I'm really going to connect with my future audience, the people who I want to hire me or buy for my business, I'm going to have to connect with them in a way that a lot of people are not doing.
Oh, yeah.
Especially online. There's a lot of people hiding behind the pretty fluff and the BS, but it's like, what is your real life looking like? And when you connect with people on that level, it doesn't matter what kind of business you start. Tasha, I pivoted a million times and I still have my consistent tribe that follows me, that talks about me, that recommends me. And it's because I try my best to be as authentic as I can be. I try not to hide behind the shameful moments that happen, because they happen to all of us. Yes. And so at that moment, I realized, like, you got two choices when you in a situation, whether you're on a 9-to-5 crying, hate it. You could either leverage that situation or you don't, and then document things. I wrote some of my best pieces of content. I came up with some of my best concepts sitting in my car on my lunch break.
Wow.
So even though I didn't share it at that time, I documented my feelings. I documented how I was getting myself out of certain situations. And so when it was time for me to write the book, when it was time for me to launch the podcast, when it was time for me to do things that I'm doing now, I have a process, a proven process that has worked for me. So now I can offer that to somebody else. That's really how I think when I think about, if you are in a situation that you're really not happy with, it's not ideal for you, you got a choice and only you can make that choice.